What's up, everybody? So today I wanted to go over the Isochain. All right, now if you've been following my account, if you've been following what I do, you may have heard me talk a lot about isometrics and the Isochain and the isoflow and the isobow. It's a lot of isos going on, but there's a lot of benefit to doing isometric type training, which the standard definition is any sort of positional hold, but I also like to utilize various apparatuses to increase strength. And so one of the key benefits of using something like the Isochain or the isobow or isoflow is that you can work against your body's own resistance. And the thing I like about that is it's very difficult to go beyond your body's own capabilities. When you get your Isochain, this is what it looks like when you get the package. Now, I will say first and foremost, I have rigged this in my own special way to make it a little bit easier for me. But when you get your Isochain, it comes with the chain. It comes with 3 carabiners. There's a swivel. There's the plate. There's a heavy duty spring. And then there's the handlebar itself. Now, the benefit of the Isochain compared to, let's say, the isoflow or the isobow, right? Because we have, this is the isoflow, which is a sort of a full body isometric device. And then this is a sort of a smaller on-the-go isometric device as well. The difference is that with the Isochain and the handlebar, it actually measures your strength. And I like that the fact that there's a neurofeedback component to it, which basically gives you these beeps to let you know when you've surpassed your goal that you've set up. So we're gonna go through a lot of that. I'm gonna show you some of the workouts I like to do with it. You can do standing exercises, like you can stand on the plate and do deadlifts and bent over rows, but you can also do seated exercises, so you can sit and have the platform against your feet, kind of like a rower, which I think is pretty cool. And you can also attach this to other tools. So for instance, today, I have this attached to the 4D Pro suspension trainer tool. And the reason why I have this attached is because it's a little bit easier for me to slide this up and down to the various positions versus trying to get in and out of the various links with the Isochain itself. So I just want to start off by saying that, because when you purchase your Isochain, it's going to come with a chain, okay? And then what you would do is take the carabiner and plug it into the different holes that coincide to the position that you want to be in. Another reason why I like to use something like this over the chain is because this is quite loud. It's quite loud. So if you're like me, you have a roommate, or you're in an environment that you need to be somewhat quiet, it's much easier to have something like this, okay? So just keep that in mind, that normally you would use the chain, but here we go. Now, on the handlebar itself, there is a power button. So when you turn it on, it looks like this, okay? Make sure you have your setup properly. So I have the locking carabiner connected to the bar. I have the swivel. And then I personally like to put the other locking carabiner on the other end of the swivel. And I almost never remove those. And then with my setup, I know that this is a perfect distance for my deadlift. And again, you can train at different levels depending on how tall you are or where you place it on the chain, okay? So just keep that in mind and watch as I go through some of these workouts, and you'll be able to understand what I mean, okay? Now, what I typically do when I first get my Isochain, I'm gonna do a workout for the day, I like to see where I'm at, right? So if I wanna start with a deadlift, I make sure that I just turn this on, it's zeroed out, okay? And there's no letters or numbers or anything on the screen, right? So right now it's just 0, 0, 0. And if I want to test my max, what I do is I go ahead and set up. So let's say, hopefully you can use this as a warm up, or you can warm up yourself by doing various things, but I'm gonna go ahead and go into an attempt so you kind of see what it looks like. And then I'm actually gonna turn it this way so you can see what's happening while I'm doing it. So I set myself up. I like the connection of the spring and the loop here on the plate. I like it to be closer to my ankle bones and my heels, so at the back. And then I set myself up and you'll see what happens, right? So I'm going to go into a attempt here and okay, so that was about a 3-second attempt. Nothing crazy, I don't expect any huge numbers with that. But what I can do is go in and see what was my max on that short lift. So it was 334 for the max pull, okay? And then my average for that time period, that 3 seconds or so, was 287. Now, if I hit average again, so first to see your max, you hit max. Okay, and then to see your average over that duration, you hit average, of course. If you want the average to go away and you want to kind of zero it back out, just hit average again. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit longer so that so we see what the average does over that period of time, and then that also allows me to know what number to set it at for my various workouts. I think the default for this device is 6 seconds of time, but you can change that, and I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. And you can also change the load at which you want to achieve your workout, okay? So I'm gonna do another one for a little bit longer so that you kind of see what's happening, okay? All right, so here we go. I'm setting myself up, deadlift, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down. Notice that I don't jerk into it. At the same time, if you slowly pull into it, that is going to register as a part of your average when you do your load. So just keep that in mind. The average is sometimes, depending on when it starts to measure, will change drastically just based on how you're doing your pull, okay? So my max on that one was 336. I guess it was about the same. And 327 for the average. So that was 6 seconds average, okay? So if my average is 327 and I think that's legit, then for my workout, what I typically like to do for my workout is 3 sets, and I like to have 3 successful rounds of 6 to 10 seconds, okay? So today what I'm gonna do is do a 6-second protocol. I'm gonna do 3 rounds, and what we're listening for is the beeps, okay? So the beeps is the neurofeedback part, which is very important, which you do not get from one of these other tools that I have, right? So that's kind of the difference between regular isometrics with other tools like straps or bands or whatever, versus the Isochain, is that you get a chance to get a readout for every exercise every time you go and exercise, okay? So 327 was my number. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to select time. So there's a T in the upper right corner. There's a T, and if I push up or down now when the T is selected, it's gonna give me the weight, okay? So the weight right now is 325, and it's blinking. Now, my average was 327, okay? And 325 is what it's set at. Let's maybe take that down to, let's say 315. Okay, so I'm gonna push down and I'm gonna go to 315. If you hold it down, it goes in increments of 10. Once it starts blinking, that means it's registering that number. Now, if you wanna change the time parameter, you just hold down the time button and it'll show you where you're at. So it was at default at 6. Sometimes I go up to 10. You can go even higher. I think today I'm gonna just do 6 for the sake of the video. Let it blink. So it's blinking, that means it's registering. So now, T is in the top right corner. We have it set at 315, and we have it set for 6 seconds. So what you're gonna do is, if I'm pulling successfully beyond 315, then it's gonna give me beeps. And those beeps are gonna go beep, bump, beep, bump, beep. So the last 2 seconds is a continuous beep. I always like to make sure to go beyond that beep until it goes off, and then I finish my set. And then we'll go back in and we'll look and see what those numbers are. So here we go. So I'm set up. And notice that when I had a little bit of a pull, you saw that it had a number on there, right? So I want to make sure that it's taut, but I'm not pulling. So if I do that, if I pull a little bit, and it's registering that. We don't want that because that becomes part of the average. But the average doesn't matter so much right now because we're listening for the beeps. That's all I'm doing. I'm not looking at the chain or the bar. I'm just going to listen for the beeps. Ready, and go. Woo! Okay, so my max on that was 408. 408 was my max. My average was 211. So like I said before, depending on when it registers your pull, it will dictate what the average is, and it doesn't really matter. As long as you get those successful beeps, that's what you're going for, okay? So I hit average again, take that off, and it goes back to the menu screen, which is the time, okay? Normally, I like to rest about 30 seconds in between each of the sets. I would say we're about 20 seconds of rest, and we're gonna go again, okay? So that's round one successful round. I'm gonna go for 2 more, and then we'll move into a different exercise to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like, okay? So here we go. We're gonna set up, make sure everything is prepared. If you wait too long, then it will shut off. And so you just wanna make sure to turn it back on and make sure you have everything set again, because you don't wanna lose those rounds, okay? All right, here we go. Round number 2. Let's see if I can beat 408. And woo! Okay, what do you think? Hey, 416.6. Again, I'll go back to the averages for shits and giggles. The average was 289. I don't know how that got measured like that, but it's okay. You know, some of the downsides to this is that component. It might be discouraging if you only rely on that average without taking into account the beeps, because then you might think, oh, I didn't hit my average. I actually did. I was well above it. I was at 416. And you know, the first pull and the last pull is still being registered. So that's why the number is a lot lower, okay? So that was 2 successful rounds. I could up the load because I have it set at 315, but there's no need to do that. I usually would wait until the next day that I'm gonna do this same movement to dictate if I need to take that up or not. So every time I do a successful round, I always think to myself, okay, I could adjust it next time, all right? So again, that was about 30 seconds. We're gonna go for 1 more round. And again, this is very beneficial for clients. This is very beneficial for trainers, because now we know without a doubt if a person's getting stronger, weaker, and we actually know how to progress someone throughout their strength protocols, okay? All right, so I'm setting up, everything is ready, and here goes the last round. Woo! Okay, 418. So 418.8, I got stronger as I went. And of course, let's look at the average, 250, doesn't really matter, okay? So that was a successful 3 rounds, and that was the deadlift, okay? So deadlift is one of my favorite moves when it comes to the Isochain. And again, I think it's pretty easy to imagine what this would be like if I had the chain connected instead of this band system that I have. Don't get too wrapped up into that, because you don't have to use this. I just like that myself. Like I said, the chain is a little bit clunky sometimes in trying to get this in here. And if I'm moving through a variety of workouts, I don't want the time to keep ticking off if I want to be regimented with my rest in between sets, okay? So now we're gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go into a curl. So I'm gonna take off the carabiner from the spring, and now I'm gonna use my fancy little setup here. Again, it works for me. It doesn't have to work for you, it just works for me. I kind of have this set for a curl position, and I kind of know where it needs to be. So I put this here like that. And that's about right for my curl position. Okay, now this is the low end of a curl position. So I could train there, or I could take this a little bit higher, go to this carabiner, and I could do the set about here. So I think I'm gonna do it here today. I think this is about right. Now, if I don't do anything to the screen here on the handlebar, it's gonna think I'm trying to pull at 315, and I will not get successful beeps because I'm not curling 315, that's for sure. So I'm gonna take off the T. So you see it just went off because I didn't do anything to it, so that's a feature to save the battery. So I'm turning it back on. And this is actually what I wanted to do anyway. If the T is still selected and you want to measure your max without the time constraint or the time component, then just hit time again and it'll wipe it out. And it'll be in this home screen. I'll call this the home screen. So I'm gonna do the home screen. I'm gonna go into my curl. You can do this standing or seated. I tend to think that doing it seated allows you to not cheat, but I'm gonna do this standing for now, okay? So here we go. I'm gonna go into my curl, and I realize that that's not the prettiest of faces, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so I wanna know what my number, what my max is, and then my average so I can determine where to put the load. So my max on that was 107. I don't know if that's right, but apparently it is for today. And then my average was 106. So potentially I could set it at 100 pounds for my load and see if I can get successful beeps. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna push the average off again. Now I'm back at the home screen, there's nothing there. I know that my time default for today is set at 6 seconds. So all I'm gonna do is press time, and then I'm gonna go to 100 pounds. So remember I told you, if you hold this down, it goes in increments of 10, that's what we want. So boom, boom, boom. And we're gonna go to 100 pounds. All right, we wait for it to blink, 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 blink. Now, time is set up here, 6 seconds. My load is at 100. I'm listening for the beeps. Here we go, and woo! So that was one successful round. Eyes are about to pop out of my head. Okay, so max on that was 110. All right, my average was 99.2. Again, we know that that's not true because I got 6 successful beeps. So if you take that into account, then I think you understand where we're going with it. So you don't even really have to look at the max or the average after each of these if you don't want to. You could literally just go, okay, I got 6 successful beeps or 10 successful beeps, and you can just up it next time by 5 pounds in the load or 10 pounds in the load, okay? All right, round 2. We'll say that's about 30 seconds of rest. Round 2, ready? Whew. Okay. That was getting stronger. 113, 71. Okay. Whew. All right, we're gonna do a third round, see if we get all successful beeps. I have gotten stronger actually. I used to set this at 95. I think I started at 85 and I went to 95. And today I'm successful over 100. I probably could go to 105, 110, but this is not like your typical moving through ranges of motion dynamically. This is a isometric hold and you're giving max effort for the time that you set. All right, last round. Oof. Okay, 113 and 99.6. So, as you can see, I didn't really go through a big warm up, if anything at all. I mean, I just came here from the street, set this up, and we're rocking and rolling. But I feel like this is serving as my warm up. So I could do this and then go into another type of workout, because what I've done is I've now increased the circulation throughout my musculature and I'm truly warmed up, right? And because I'm not risking doing anything over the head and you know, or I'm in improper positions, then this is about as safe as it can get, while also maximizing your strength potential, okay? So I'm going to, I'll do a seated one. So I'm gonna turn this off for a moment. Yes, I'll do a seated one, and then I'll do like a seated one on a chair or a box. And then I think in that position, I'll do a overhead press, and then I'll finish with doing a seated row. So you can see a variety of exercises. So you can let your mind go wherever you want it to go, get creative with what you can do with this. I mean, I've done like in between the leg pulls, I've done behind the back pulls, I've done Zercher squats, I've done all kinds of exercises with this. And actually, when you purchase your Isochain, they have a great book, that ebook that comes with it. And also there's a great Facebook page that has a lot of Isochain users. Guys like Chris Johnson is amazing at giving a lot of information. Also, I did an interview with Matt Schifferly on my podcast, Simply Walk the Talk. I forget the episode number, but we talked a lot about isometrics in general. But those are all great resources, just so you know. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a box or a seat. We're gonna go into a seated exercise. And I'm doing this mostly to take out the legs when it comes to some of these movements, because I do realize, like, if I'm going into an overhead position, if my legs are bent, I'm probably gonna use my legs to push through that some. So I don't wanna cheat in that sense, okay? So this is a really good position for the vertical chest press. So I'll show the vertical chest press, and then I'll show an overhead press, and then I'll do a seated row, okay? So we'll turn it on. This is the home screen. I'm gonna do my test. So let's get all this out of the way. Make sure that the spring is loaded, and we're gonna go into a press, and this is a vertical chest press. So again, I always like to do one to kind of determine where my number is gonna be. So the max on that was 189. Yeah. Average was 132. 189, 132. I'm gonna go 150. No, I'm gonna go 175. I'm gonna push myself, 175, okay? So go back to the home screen, hit time. We know default is 6 seconds. So what did I say, 175? So 175. So pressing the up arrow, there's 175. Let it blink, it's gonna be set, and then we get ready for the work. All right, so we're getting set up. Make sure you're in a good position, shoulders back. Listening for the beeps. 193, average 133. So again, I'm just looking for the max on that. I'm not gonna do all 3 sets on that. I'm gonna just now go to the overhead press, and I'm just doing this for the sake of time. Again, if you do decide to do what I'm doing with the alternate setup, just make sure that it's safe and that you test it out. You know what you're doing when it comes to extending it, okay? So I'm pulling this up a bit. A little bit more length. When I did this at home, I realized that if I have that on the ground from the seated position, that's about right for me. So there we go. Okay, that looks about right. So this is for me, specifically for me, this is a weak position for me. The idea would be to try to get stronger in the weak positions. And so that's a good position for me to work. So I'm gonna take off the time because I don't know what the number is gonna be. Get myself set up, feet are planted. You wanna make sure that also you're in a stable platform with whatever you're sitting on, because we don't want this to tip forward. I'm gonna go into my 5-second, 4 or 5 second press to determine the number. So here we go. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Okay, so my max on that was 105. But that's better because it used to be 75. All right, and let's see what that average is. 99. I'm getting stronger. I've been working back bend presses, back bridge presses, and handstand push-ups, so maybe that's why. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my home screen, and what did I say that was? 105? Yes. So I'm gonna go 95. I'm gonna go 95. Doing this upside down is hard. Okay, 95. Okay, I'm gonna let it blink. Go into the position. Whew. All right, here we go. So we're going for 95. Listening for the beeps. Let's go, baby. Huh. Whew. Oh, so 106.4, not bad, and 96.6. So this time it actually showed that the average was above the number I set, which is great. Okay, I'm gonna bypass doing the other 2 rounds of that. Again, I'm just kind of showing you what it would be like when you get your setup and how I've kind of hacked this setup. This is me hacking the hack, okay? So now I'm gonna go into a seated row and I'm gonna put the platform, sometimes I like to just put the platform up in the air and I push it that way. I noticed in the Facebook group, some of the people were suggesting to put it against something. So that's also a way to think about it. I'm gonna turn this off, save the battery. I'm gonna get into a seated position on the floor. And same thing, I like to have the part that the spring connects to closer to the ground, closer to my heels. All right, so when I did this at home, I had the big carabiner connected to the spring. If I remember right. Nope, that's a little low. I'm actually gonna use the chain on this one. So you guys can see what it's like to actually use the chain. All right, we're gonna get a good pull on this one now. But I think this is better. We're going for our pull. And okay. I gotta do it again. I see what's happening. I'm definitely gonna put this up against something because what it's registering is when that platform drops down, it's measuring another pull. So that's why we're going to use a box. To the side a little bit. Okay. All right. So now I don't have to worry about it falling over and then getting another number to register. So this is going to be a true measurement here for the row. That's more like it. 328. So when I was doing this at home, I was around 315. 325, I think. That's why I had it last set at 325. So we're gonna do, I'm gonna set it at 315. I'm gonna do this at 10 beeps, just so you guys can see what that looks like. So I go to time, I hold down time, we're gonna go up to 10, okay? Let that blink, it goes away, and now we're gonna set the number to, I'm gonna do 315, I think. There we go. 315. Let it blink. So it's now set at 10 seconds and 315, just so you kind of see what that looks like and sounds like. All right. Here we go for the row. Unsuccessful. So you can hear there was a couple beeps I got above 315, but because I wasn't able to sustain it for the entire time, it started over on the beeps. So I need to drop it. It's another example of what to do when it comes to this, right? So it was at 315. I'm just gonna take the down arrow. I'm gonna put it to 305. I like to go in increments of 10 when I drop down. When I go up, I go in increments of 5. Okay, here we go. Whew. Whew. Oh boy. So 330 on the max. 251 on the average, but that, you know, I've already explained all that. So that's the Isochain. That's a bit of the work I do with the Isochain. I will most likely do more post. I'll probably do a full podcast with this, but when it comes to these types of tools, I think there's none better. I think this is very, very useful. And before I go, I'll just show you the reason why I think this is the next best thing. The Iso Flow and the Iso Low. The price point is significantly lower, but you don't get the readouts. So you only know, you have to trust yourself that you're working as hard as you can, okay? So when you get this one here, the Iso Low, you can do exercises like pulls, you can do bicep curls, you can do tricep extensions, you can do rows. There's a lot of different things you can do with that. If you have 2 of them, like I do, you can also set yourself up for deadlifts. So deadlifts, and bent over row. Lots of great exercises you can do with this. You can also loop it over things and do pull-ups. I think it's kind of a cool way to use this. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think this is like 20 bucks. Like one of these is like 20 bucks. Or if you get the Iso Flow, which is what comes in this little bag here, you get this full body one, and you can get the option to get one of the Iso Bows in this. So I bought 2 iso flow setups so I could have the one for each of my clients and one for myself. So that's the iso flow. Here's the full body version. It essentially has a carabiner in the middle, and it kind of crosses like an X. So you stand on the bottom two, and then you use the top two for your various exercises. So it would look like this. You have this, and then you step in the bottom two. So I'm just gonna put my foot in here, put my foot in here. And you can also extend this, you can shorten it, you can make it longer, whatever is necessary. But same thing with this. Let me just shorten this a little bit. So if I wanted to go into a curl, you go here. You can get a little bit dynamic with it as well. So you can, and I'm basically resisting myself. You can do full body, sort of like overhead movements. So if I want to extend this a little bit more, you can kind of go back to that position I talked about, I showed earlier with the Isochain. So this is a great tool as well. Like I said, the only difference is that you don't get a readout. You just got to trust that you're giving your all, you're maxing out. So that's isometrics in a nutshell. The Isochain, the iso bow, the iso flow, and my ways of hacking it. All right, enjoy.